Okay, so I know there's great questions, and I feel badly that we're cutting off some really great dialogue. But please jot down the questions. We do have time at the end to have breakout rooms and discuss more. And of course, in future, as time goes on, we'll be able to meet with you outside of this event, certainly. So the next topic that we're going to talk about is staying on the path. And so I'm going to kick this off really quickly. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time in my section because I think we really need to hear from Jackie. We all are really interested in improving and reducing barriers and interventions and things. We got super excited in the chat when we started to talk about College 101 and those kinds of things. So I really want to give her the bulk of the time here to talk, because she has some great things going on that we all need to hear about. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the transfer question, which is not coming up now. Okay. So this is a very different spin. I mean, you can look at your data, your transfer data, that's there, right? And you'll look at that and you'll decide whether you think that that's what your program capacity is. I mean, you can look at alignment to campuses close by and make sure your curriculum is aligned with that. I mean, that's all, like Anna talked about, you can phone that in. We all get that. But I think when we're what we try to do is to look at it from a student perspective with this question. So this is a little bit different. Does the faculty talk to students about, what they want to do? What do they want to do? Why are you sitting in this classroom taking this class? What are your goals? And what can you do? Do you share with your students the jobs they can get? I mean, for me as a CTE faculty, it's, sort of obvious, right? But so it's kind of funny that I'm covering this question, but anyway, but we do this all the time. I even do this as a CTE faculty member. You shouldn't finish your career in this X-ray tech world. You can also be a teacher. You can also do this. You can also do that. Are those conversations happening in somewhere in your program? When is this done? Because I can tell you, students migrate towards CTE, this is my opinion, CTE programming, because they know what the end result is. They can see it. And so I think with transfer programs, if we as faculty can make that clearer for them, that they will be more successful. They will see their goal at the end, where they're going to be. Because I remember myself when I was, coming out of high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. And in the classroom with us as faculty, that's where the students can really get the best advice and they feel connected to the campus if we're talking to them about why they're here in our classrooms. So I just wanted to say that really quickly, that's sort of a little bit different of an approach to looking at the transfer question than we have had in the past. And, this obviously advisory labor market is going to be particularly for CTE programs only because that's the data that we have. So looking at your most recent advisory, right? And then looking at the labor market trends, and that is typically discussed at your advisory meeting. You talk about what the job aspects are looking like in the future and whether the program is still meeting those needs. So you can just pull up your advisory minutes and take a look at what's in there and then see if there's any of the to-dos that's coming out of your advisory that still needs to be done. And so you can note that here, and then it can go into the more global planning. All right, I will pass the baton on to Anna to talk about external factors.
All right, so this is a field that you might say does not apply. There's nothing, but I still think we should consider this. In general, we think of external factors as things like, I'm thinking for allied health during COVID, clinical sites was a huge external factor, not having enough clinical sites. I know that's always a struggle for them. So it might be an external accreditation that you have for your program. It might be some legislation that's coming down the pike. It might be things like AB 705 impacted English and math. And so this is just an opportunity for you to record and program review external factors that are impacting your students staying in the department's program. So again, you can see this is coming from that student perspective, as opposed to me just thinking, well, you know, it's all about me and whatever. So Lauren, you have your hand up.
Would this be a good place to put in issues related to like equity? I know a lot of our students are struggling with staying in the programs either because of like work and family obligations that are taking them away from academic study, or they end up getting jobs after their internship and they don't complete our program because really their goal was to be working, and they don't see the degree as important as they don't see the degree as important as the job that they
Sure,
get from that.
sure. There is a prompt that's barriers that you might find it's more appropriate to put it there. But if not, please use this spot. That's great. But I do believe you'll probably find that it works better in barriers. Okay, Chris.
That was my questions. What's the difference between external factors and barriers?
I'll tell you that an external factor conceptually is more like, you know, legislation or accreditation or other systems that impact our program. So from a first pass on the question, and Kelly and Diane, please pipe in if you have more to add, that would be the perspective. That would be the, you know, operationalize an external factor would be something outside your program, a system or structure that's impacting your program. So in terms of, as opposed to barriers, those are more local to the student in terms of barriers to the students for success. Does that help at all?
Kind of, except for, as described, the external factors were normally don't get any lead time on knowing more. It's more that they happen to us and we don't expect them.
Yeah, you know, let's say that your accreditation requires that they have 500 hours of internship and students aren't completing because they don't have 500 hours to give. So, you know, for whatever reason, that might be considered an external factor.
Okay.
So in terms of when this question is a rollover from prior program reviews, it was a place to give departments and programs an opportunity to record external agencies, systems, accreditations that impact their program. And if I go back and look at our prior program review, it probably didn't have that part related to students staying in your department's program. It was probably, and I'll go back and look for grins and giggles, it probably was not student-centered.
Gotcha.
So Leslie, and then Jessica.
Thanks. In the photography department, our students sometimes don't have laptops that are suitable for photography. And would that be a barrier?
I would put that under barrier, yes.
Okay.
Because it's more attached directly to the student. And I understand making this question student-centered does kind of make it a little gray there, but I would put that under barriers. Jessica.
I was just going to say the Area F requirement is a great example. It's going to get in the way of a lot of students transferring. But, you know, Charles and a group of us got to work to try to get as many ethnic studies classes together so it won't stop students. But there are lots of things that creep in that just come up that can stop students that we have no control over. And so I like to think of it as, you know, things that we can't control, that could really just stop students and us in our tracks, versus kind of, and it could be something that students have no control over, but the way the way the way I'd rather think of it is things that we can't control as an institution.
Thank you, Jessica. That really helps for me as well. So thank you. And her example of the ethnic studies requirement, if you don't know, the CSUs are now requiring, and now the community colleges too, Jessica, is that correct? So our general education is now requiring a course in ethnic studies. Well, that is an external factor that's impacting her program, and it's impacting all of our programs. So that's a perfect example. So that's all I have. I would like to then turn it over to Jackie to talk about intervention and the intervention prompt, which is new. And
all right. So I, first of all, for those of you, if you don't know me, I'm our intervention guided pathways coordinator. And I'm also the student success center coordinator. So I wear a couple of different hats on campus. But we're going to talk a little bit about staying on the path and helping students stay on the path. So once they're on campus, so you can kind of think of the intervention team has been really looking at things for how to help students once they get on campus. And when we started with our inquiry phase, one of the things we talked a lot about was that we have a lot of resources on campus. But how do we make students aware of those resources? How do we get them to use the resources that are available? And as you guys have been talking about that, something that kind of came to me too is maybe the flip side of that also is how do we make faculty aware of all the resources that are available to students as well? So I just cut and paste from the program review document. And I'm not going to focus on everything. There was just a few things that I was going to focus on. So this one really kind of caught my eye as far as writing down an activity that the department can implement to reduce barriers. And it said this can include faculty-student interaction related to college resources, to the department identifying a plan to gather more specific details on the barriers for students that are seeking a degree or transfer in the department. But I was going to focus on this one right here, increasing faculty and student interaction. And I can tell you from being a faculty member who sees all the students come into the Student Success Center, one of the things that we do every semester is we ask the students to fill out a student survey so that they can rate our services and our tutors. And one of the questions on the survey is who referred you to come to the center? And overwhelmingly, the highest percentage that students indicate is from their faculty member, from instructors. And so even though if you feel like students maybe aren't listening to you when you talk about resources, I think that they are. So I just keep that in mind. So, and as we talk about these two, these are possible examples, suggestions. They're things that you may or may not want to do. So I'm just throwing them out there as possibilities and possibly conversation starters. So one of the things that we identified in our intervention group was the need for early assessment of students' understanding materials to evaluate need for intervention. From a student's perspective, a lot of times faculty may give exams late in the semester. Even, a lot of faculty, I think, give tests maybe about the 4th or 5th week, and maybe they'll have another test about midterms. But from a student's perspective, the things we hear in the center is, well, they didn't do well on the first exam, but they think that they'll do better on the next one. So they don't seek out resources at that point because they think that they can do it on their own. By the time they take the second exam, and they do poorly on that one. Now they're kind of in a hole that's hard to dig themselves out of. So the need for early assessment of students to understand if they're understanding material is important. How faculty want to do that is clearly up to them. But we could talk about some of the ways that faculty can do those things. Also, in connection with assessment then is the early intervention or referral to resources based on student needs. So many of you or all of you probably know that we rolled out Starfish last semester for faculty use. I believe it's going to be rolled out to students this semester for them to be able to actually create flags themselves so they can actually refer themselves, if you will. And so if you're not using Starfish, that's something that is a possibility. Basically, I think currently they're asking faculty to do it around the 4th week of the semester. And then obviously faculty can use it at any time to make for referrals throughout the semester. So, so there's Starfish. I believe there's going to be more training and some flex presentations. And I just heard that the IIC, our Canvas folks, are now going to be involved with helping faculty who want to learn more about using Starfish. So that's a positive thing. Obviously, counseling, somebody was mentioning earlier about having students fill out their student ed plans. And so counseling is obviously an early referral that is important for students. We also have a Success Matters team. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. It was kind of born out of our AIM team. That dealt mostly with students on probation who are at risk of being on probation. And we've kind of tied that in. It's tied into Starfish in the sense that if a faculty member makes a referral, they kind of have a choice of making a referral for sort of general issues or making a referral for tutoring. And so if it's a general issue, like the students falling asleep in class, or you know, they seem like they have other kinds of issues going on, like food issues or any of those other kinds of issues, then all those referrals go to the Success Matters team. But you could also just call somebody up on the team. Heather Dominguez and Jessica Martin are 2 people that are part of that team, and try to connect students with the resources that they need as well. The Student Success Center offers tutoring to students. You know, we try to tell students that the earlier they get in, the earlier they can get help. Students they can come in to get assistance, or they can come in sort of as a preventative measure. So we try to encourage students and we'd like to encourage faculty to have their students think of it as preventative, not just you wait till you're in trouble to go to the Success Center and get tutoring. Other kinds of resources might be office hours or reaching out to students on with email. I'm checking my notes to make sure I'm not forgetting anything. Thank you. Okay. Increasing student awareness of campus resources. These are some things that faculty can do to help with that effort. And again, it's not something that maybe everybody in the department's going to do, but it is something that can be a discussion point on how to make students more aware of campus resources. So one of the big things that faculty can do is post something in their Canvas shell or on their syllabus, letting students know about resources on campus. You know, we think that it's prevalent on the webpage, but students don't seem to find it or look for it. Or I think I think it was Jessica, one of our meetings said students students don't know what to ask, right? So they can't even ask a question because they don't know what to ask, or they don't know what they're missing, so they can't ask about it. I did want to show you, if you haven't seen the Stay the Course. Let me see if this will let me. No. Let me switch real quick. Oops. Sorry, having a difficulty. There we go. I was clicking the wrong button. Can you guys see the Stay the Course, Pirates? So this is under our student resources page, and this pretty much includes everything that students would want to know about on campus. There's a series of workshops. We were talking earlier about the need for study skills, and somebody mentioned, creating a class. We currently don't have those, but we do have things like these workshops. This is from last semester, but you can see we have workshops on everything from note-taking, STEM, financial aid, test prep, preparing for science finals, finding motivation, managing test anxiety. So these are workshops that are offered to students. Felipe was a big part of getting these up and operational, and offering swag to students. So I know at our last meeting, Felipe was sharing how much the students like the swag that they get just for attending these workshops. But it did work as far as it increased the number of people who were participating. So that's one place that you could put just something like a link on your syllabus or in your Canvas shell, and it would take them directly to that page that shows them. I kind of left there prematurely, I'm sorry, but because I wanted to show you, if you scroll, whoops, sorry, I'm having issues here. I think I might have closed the screen.
Jackie, while you're poking around, could I ask a question? So I know that, like, let's say I have a class that the students are really struggling and they're not going to succeed in my class because of some basic writing skills. I know one of the ideas I could have is that I could go to the English department, and maybe we could, I think they have some non-credit support courses, so maybe we could do that. That could be one way. But if is another option, I mean, if I wanted to give a half hour of my class time for one of your tutors to come in and talk about that, is that an option? Could I contact you and say, hey, could you send an English tutor over to talk to my class about this topic, and they would come over during the first half hour of my class? Is that an option? Is that available? So like your workshop in my classroom.
Definitely. That's a little bit farther down. I have about collaborating with the different resources on campus. But we have, for example, one of the history instructors has collaborated with our writing center, and she sends in her students to meet with tutors anytime she has a writing assignment due. And she worked with Katie McCarroll, who's she's our writing center faculty expert, and half her load is in the writing center. And so she works with faculty to create what we call directed learning activities, or DLAs, that focus on particular assignments that faculty wants their students to complete. So we're very much into collaborating with faculty. We've worked with, for example, food service management instructors, with students whose math skills aren't quite up to par. They need some refreshing about conversions or fractions, decimals, that kind of stuff. So yes, that's definitely something we can do.
Okay.
So just to show you a little bit more about this is again the Stay the Course and what's here. everything from tutoring, the library, financial aid, counseling, Pirates Cove, where we give away free food, the health center. So all of these resources are right here in one place for students to be able to access. And so this is a really great resource that faculty can include on their syllabus, or like I said, they could post the link in their Canvas shell if they wish. But that's a great way to make students aware of what we have. Getting them there is another thing. But so let me go back to my outline. Sorry, I see there's some things in the chat, but I don't know if somebody's monitoring.
We're monitoring for you,
Okay,
Jackie.
thank you. Okay, so we got through there. We talked about stay the course. This is a great link that faculty can include. Tutoring, we talked a little bit about, because Anna, thank you for asking that question. We've done everything from study groups. We've worked with some instructors in creating test prep or test review sessions using a tutor. Usually we have the tutor meet with the instructor and go over exactly what it is they want them to emphasize, and we'll do this review sessions. And we have all those study skills workshops that I mentioned. We have gone to classes and done the study skills workshops. You know, I can show students a time management technique in about 5 minutes. That's really helpful technique to show students. It's called the PLRS system, if anybody's familiar with it. But it focuses a little bit on using preview and review as a way to maintain information, because it's all about repetition and time on task, as opposed to or actually frequency of seeing something rather than how long you see something, right? So, and then of course, all the student services and programs that we have on campus. Again, relating back to our link here, if students don't know anything about EOPS or financial aid, they're not going to be part of those programs. So it's just a really good link for students to use. The other thing that instructors can do on a instructor level, again, these are just ideas. They're probably not something that you would suggest as a department necessarily, but we do have a lot of instructors who create assignments that incorporate campus resources, like the Student Success Center. I mentioned the history instructor who makes it part of her writing assignments. Some instructors give extra credit to come in for tutoring. So there's a variety of different things. The library, of course, some people do a scavenger hunt. We've had people come to the Student Success Center from some of the classes on a scavenger hunt, finding out about resources. And then doing a survey or questionnaire. So this is something I used to do in one of my classes. Is the first day of class, I would give them just like a 5-minute survey or questionnaire to fill out. And I'd ask them about, you know, what's their major, what are their goals, if they've encountered any obstacles or struggles. And I found that really helpful as an instructor to have. Now, obviously, if you have large lecture classes and hundreds of students, it might be a little difficult. But sometimes it's good. I mean, I've had everything. I think I always also have there on if there's any questions they want to ask. And, you know, I've had everything from, you know, what does GPA stand for? So our students, you know, especially their incoming students or their first-time college students, you know, they have those kinds of questions, and we can help them as faculty, even though I think sometimes we think, well, you know, that's somebody else's job to teach students that information, but they're in our class, and like I said earlier, they listen to their instructors. They trust their instructors to give them information that they need. So I don't know if instructors really know what an important role they play as a point person for a student's education. This was the second question under intervention and support. And so is based on the department's discussion of intervention support options available, what types of intervention would best serve students in the department? So I just listed some of the things here that I know are currently going on, or things that may be good ideas to create. So I know a lot of departments have support courses. Some of them are non-credit, some of them are credit courses. The math department, in response to AB 705, created support courses for their transfer level courses. And I think their data has been pretty good as far as how that's been working for them. Non-credit courses are also an option. The English department has non-credit courses that are on focus topics for students to take. We talked a little bit about this earlier. This is something the intervention team has been talking about too, is we always talk about Summer Bridge as a means to onboard students, but what about having Summer Bridge or Intercession Bridge for those students who are falling in the cracks? So the students who are failing classes their first semester, what kind of a bridge can we use to support students from the fall to the spring? So those are some other kinds of ideas. You know, and as a department, you might be able to do something as a department. It would be great if we could do something as a college. That would be a great idea. Learning communities or cohorts. Some programs already use these, you know, the CTE programs, the Puente program. Freshman experience. We used to actually have a freshman experience program on campus. And it was years ago when we had basic skills funding, and it lasted for several years, but it never could get the institutionalization that it needed. And so funding was always an issue because, you know, you were at the whim of having to ask for money semester after semester. And so it kind of, it just stopped happening because the people involved, to be honest, just kind of got frustrated with not having the support they needed to be able to continue offering something like that. And then obviously collaborating with other departments or programs, you know, thinking outside of your own department or program. So working with counseling, with STEM, with the library, with the Student Success Center. Those are all ways that, you know, programs and departments can offer intervention strategies to their students. So sorry, I went through that pretty quickly. I don't know if anybody has any questions, or I'll be in the breakout room later if somebody wants to talk more about any of these topics.
Thank you, Jackie. I just wanted to add something in here. You know, and think about your part-time faculty and think about your new hires. You know, one of the bugaboos that I always just drives me bananas is we send new faculty into the classroom. Here's some keys or Zoom link, go for it, you know, and where are we onboarding our faculty that don't know about these things, right? And so I will typically take it upon myself to do it because I care about my students, and I know my new part-timer or my new faculty member would love to know this stuff, but they don't have the time or even know where to go to ask these questions. So I would just also throw out, because we're the leadership on campus, we're the faculty leadership here, and we need to make sure. And I know it's been tossed around at the Senate, coming up with some sort of faculty success center or some type of way to support our new faculty that are coming on board, or even people that are transferring in with experience, right? Where is that support? And I think that's so critical, because then you flounder for a couple of years until you can figure all this out. And what kind of nonsense does that make? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. So I just wanted, this is my bugaboo. I'll get off my soapbox now, but it just drives me bonkers.
Yeah, and Cindy, thank you for putting that. The part-time faculty have a community of practice that does that. That I believe they actually will, you're not turned away if you're a full-time faculty and want to play. So, but again, if this program review, we should feel that it empowers us to really identify what we need and the direction we need the college to move in so that our students can be successful. So, with that, oh, great. Everybody's welcome to go to communities of practice. With that, I think if there aren't any more questions, we're about ready for another break. So if you're
hungry, I think we have 5 minutes, but we can break early if everyone
let's break early. And